Welcome to part 5. Subscribe for more. The palace guard rushed to share the news with the king and elders, his voice filled with excitement. Your Majesty, it's a boy. The queen has given birth to a son. The king's face erupted in a wide smile, and he let out a mighty roar, a son. I finally have a son. He pumped his fist in the air, basking in the joy and relief of finally having a male heir. The elders cheered and congratulated the king, their faces beaming with happiness. They had been waiting for this moment for so long, and finally, the kingdom had an heir to secure its future. The king rushed to Neoma's chambers, eager to behold his son. He entered the room, his eyes scanning the space until they landed on the small, swaddled figure in the midwife's arms. Let me hold him, the king demanded, his voice trembling with emotion. As the midwife handed him the baby, the king's eyes welled up with tears. He gazed lovingly at his son, his heart overflowing with pride and joy. The village erupted in a vibrant celebration, with music, dance, and feasting that lasted for 5 days. Neoma, the new mother, was showered with gifts and well-wishes from the villagers and even neighboring villages. People came from far and wide to catch a glimpse of the royal baby, and Neoma's chambers were filled with an array of presents, colorful fabrics, precious jewelry, and delicacies from across the land. The villagers rejoiced at the arrival of the future king, and their love and support for Neoma and her child were palpable. For a brief moment, the kingdom forgot its troubles and came together in a spirit of unity and celebration. The king, once neglectful and distant, now went out of his way to ensure Neoma and their child wanted for nothing. He ordered his servants and guards to attend to their every need, providing them with the finest food, clothing, and comforts. The chief priest, sensing the king's change of heart, continued to visit Neoma and the baby, offering blessings and protection. He even went so far as to create a sacred chamber, imbuing it with powerful spirits to safeguard the young family. As the days passed, Neoma's heart was transformed into a haven of peace and prosperity. The king's visits became more frequent, and he found himself growing more and more attached to his son and the woman who had borne him. Neoma, too, began to see the king in a new light. She noticed the genuine affection in his eyes when he looked at their child, and the care he took to ensure their well-being. Neoma's heart remained guarded, even as the king's actions showed a marked change. She knew that his sudden interest and care was solely due to the birth of their child, and it left a bitter taste in her mouth. She felt like she was still just a means to an end, a vessel for the future king. Just then, Kofi returned, having heard the news of the child's birth and the celebrations. He was overjoyed and joined in the festivities, embracing Neoma like a sister. His warm and genuine affection was a balm to her soul, and she felt grateful for his presence. As Kofi spent more time with Neoma and the child, he began to notice the subtle tensions between her and the king. He saw the way Neoma's eyes clouded over when the king was near. The king couldn't help but notice the ease and warmth between Neoma and Kofi. He saw how her face lit up when Kofi was near, and how her laughter came effortlessly in his presence. The king felt a pang of jealousy, wishing he could be the one to bring that kind of joy to Neoma. As the king's attention and affection towards Neoma grew, his other wives began to feel a stir of emotions. Some felt jealous and angry, resenting the special treatment Neoma received. They had always been the ones to vie for the king's attention, and now it seemed Neoma had effortlessly captured it. The full moon marked the perfect occasion for the king to host a majestic ceremony, inviting neighboring kingdoms and dignitaries to witness the naming and crowning of his newborn son. The kingdom was abuzz with excitement as preparations reached a fever pitch. Royal messengers were dispatched to deliver ornate invitations, adorned with gold leaf and crimson wax seals. The king's courtiers worked tirelessly to ensure every detail was perfect, from the lavish feast to the intricate decorations. As the night of the full moon arrived, the kingdom's grand hall shone with a dazzling array of candles, torches, and glittering jewels. The air was filled with the sweet scent of incense and the soft murmur of anticipation. The king, resplendent in his finest regalia, stood proudly beside Neoma, who cradled their son in her arms. The room fell silent as the king raised his hands, and the chief priest began the ancient ritual of naming and crowning. The chief priest's voice echoed through the hall as he proclaimed the young prince's name, Obina, son of the king. May you grow strong and wise, may your name be forever etched in the annals of our great kingdom. The assembly erupted in cheers and applause as the king and Neoma smiled, beaming with pride. Obina, which meant a father's pride in the ancient tongue, was a fitting name for the young prince. As the ceremony continued, the king presented Obina to the gathered dignitaries, and the prince was showered with gifts and blessings. The kingdom's subjects rejoiced, knowing that their future king had been named and presented to the world. At 5 years, Obina grew strong and healthy. He was watched under the eagle's eyes of his mother, Kofi, and the chief priest. He wasn't allowed to play with his stepsister. King Arinza spoiled him with gift and praises, but Neoma helped him learn to be humble and honest. One evening Obina had dinner with the king and elders. After the dinner he went into his mother's hut and started complaining about his stomach and soon started vomiting blood. Neoma screamed, calling for the physician. It was said that someone had poisoned him. When the king heard this he was furious. Who would have done this? Neoma rushed and summoned the chief priest. When he arrived he was ushered into Obina's hut. No one was allowed to sleep until whoever poisoned Obina was found. After the chief priest spent time inside Obina's hut making incantation and making herbs, he came out and saying that the boy was out of danger. Neoma wouldn't sleep. She stayed awake in case he needed anything in the fear that she almost lost her child. The king stayed by her side. Kofi won't stop till he found out who tried to poison Obina. By morning a young maid confessed that she served Obina's food, and it was Elder Odilai that persuaded her into doing it. Elder Odilai is a respectful member of the king's council and Queen Oma's father, the third wife. He was summoned before the king and elders and he denied everything, leaving the servant girl take the fall, and she was killed by nightfall. By morning Neoma went before the king and elders. She stood tall, firm and resolute. I want my child to be raised outside the palace. It was a shock to everyone because that has never happened before. Commotion erupted between the elders. The king noticed the fear in Neoma's eyes when she spoke. He knew since the birth of Obina, evil has grown deeply within the palace walls. Our ancestor King Yuzo grew up outside the palace. King Arinza said, and I will like my son to grow up there. He added, a place far from here in between rivers and high mountains. Neoma felt relief. But he has to go with Kofi and few servants, and when he is 16 years old he will return home. The end of part 5.